What should we do for shot 2? We don't have time for that. Often they will trim the time when it says on the call sheet that we have 2 hours. Sometimes that means we might have an hour. So we need to be ready to work really quickly, you know. Hi guys, my name's Dan Kennedy. I'm a celebrity and fashion photographer. I'm based in London. I do kind of two kinds of work. I do editorial work for magazines in the UK and the US. And then I also do commercial work. So my commercial clients are people like Disney, Estee Lauder, Marks and Spencer's, people like that. Today I'm going to be telling you all about what it's like to work as a celebrity portrait photographer. So yeah, I suppose the thing with celebrity portraiture or working with celebrities is that you're often, I say to people, you're kind of 80% logistics and then there's like 20% photography at the end. Sometimes, the celebrity will arrive and be like, we've got to be out of here in 20 minutes instead of 40 minutes. So you're crafting an image, bringing all of your technical skills together, but you're able to sort of speed those up and work very quickly. Sometimes the celebrity might say, hey, I love all this studio backgrounds, the red background and blue background, but let's not do any of that. Let's just go up onto the roof. So it's a question of pulling the cable out the camera and running up, putting a card in and then running upstairs onto the windy rooftop because that's what the celebrity wanted to try, and we end up getting some great shots, but that wasn't necessarily part of the plan. So as a portrait photographer, but one that does celebrities, you're having to be used to sort of moving really quickly and adapting and changing. Sometimes I'm doing my edit at the end of the shoot thinking this wasn't at all what we planned for, but actually we ended up getting some great shots because you were jumping in the rain on a rooftop or whatever you might have been doing, and even though that wasn't part of the brief, we got a great result. So we're having to adapt and twist and turn quite a lot. I guess regular portrait photography, you still really need to be engaging with your subject. It's so much about people. I think again, a lot of what I do is people just being put at ease, people understanding that kind of working with me and the kind of team that they're going to be, that they're kind of looked after, I guess. And also they understand that we're in control. That's another big thing. They want to know, they want to sense that we've got a big game plan here and everything is sorted out. And as soon as they realize that, you see their shoulders go down a bit. They're like, this guy sounds like he knows what he's doing. So I think that's a big part of it as well. Pre-production is like a massive part of what we do, and what that means is just planning ahead of the photo shoot exactly how it's going to kind of unfold. So sometimes we might get a phone call and someone might say, hey, are you free to photograph this person in a London photo studio on Tuesday? We want a grey background and the start time is 10 o'clock. And we're like, great, see you on Tuesday, 10 o'clock. It's done, 3 emails. Other times we might have jobs that involve 500 emails. Is there a blue background we could use? Yeah, could we see the availability of blue backgrounds? Could we have a blue background painted? The editor now decided she wants to change the blue to a green, so then there's a lot more questions to be asked. Or maybe there's a set being built. Sometimes we're having sets built with different walls and different fabrics, and then there'll be a big creative discussion about the brief, so how the client wants it to look, and that depends on whether it's an editorial shoot or more of an advertising shoot, but there might be some complicated kind of lighting setup that's needed. So really what we're doing kind of on every job is the pre-production bit. Where are we going to do it, what time, and what is the background or the setting, and once we've kind of ascertained that, then we kind of order our lighting. I then go through, I have a creative folder of images, which is really important to me. That lives on my desktop, and I go through that every time that I get a new job brief, and I pull pieces of that out and let them kind of weave into the creative, just to kind of make sure that the shoot's going to be as creative as possible. Maybe there was a background that I saw somewhere that I took an iPhone picture of that's a certain tone of gold, and so I'll be maybe suggesting that to the client. Hey, what about this gold background? This looks really cool. Or maybe maybe it's the fact that I saw some neon lights reflected in some water and I loved the way they kind of shimmered, and so maybe I'll be saying, hey guys, I know you thought about doing it in these different colors, but look, could we get a little bit of water on the floor? Maybe we build a small pool and have 2 or 3 centimeters of water, and then we'd see the lights reflected. So once the brief comes in, I kind of take that brief and I think, okay, how could I make it better? How could I make it more creative? And sometimes I can get a lot of my creativity into there, some of the times not so much. And so once we have that plan, then we move forward to the shoot day, and then we turn up early and get ready to kind of build the set and wait for the talent to arrive, and then hopefully have a kind of really creative day. So that's kind of a lot of the stuff that happens beforehand. Sometimes, I'm expected to be doing big client calls, Zoom calls, obviously, particularly with lots of different people on, to discuss the creative. Sometimes none. Sometimes, like the example I gave a little while ago, hi, are you free on Tuesday? It's a grey background, see you at 10 o'clock. Great, I'll still bring as much creativity to a shoot like that as I can. Hopefully we each time we end up having, a net result that is a bit more creative than it possibly could have been at the beginning. That's kind of what's important to me. Things that I use that are really crucial to kind of pre-production are a great mood board, which I know we mentioned briefly. I use actually Pages, which is within Apple, to pull together my mood board really quickly. But much more importantly for me is, where are some of those references coming from? And I have this massive folder on my desktop, and it's been there for like 10 or 12 years, maybe even longer. And in it has got loads of different references, creative references. It's got pictures of smoke in it. It's got random squares of color in it. It's got examples of screen grabs of other photography work that I really love. And so that reference folder I dip into to get kind of as much inspiration as I can do. So that's really important. And I would say to anyone else, thinking about, wanting to up their game in terms of portrait photography, or up their game in terms of creativity. Creativity is a muscle, and we have to practice using it and work with it to make it stronger. And how do you do that? Well, you remind yourself, surround yourself with great references of things that really struck a chord with you, or things that really made you feel, wow, I love the way that sky went pink. Okay, cool. Maybe I'll just screen grab that pink, and maybe we'll have some paint made up in that exact pink, and maybe we'll paint a big background just that color pink, all because it struck a chord with me when I first saw the picture of clouds. So I'm just making the point about creativity and how you really need to be kind of bringing it to the table each time, I believe anyway. So tools we use anyway would be Pages to pull together mood boards, and obviously a lot of email and things like that. And sometimes we're working on Keynote to present work together in a slide form. So they're kind of all the things we use, pre-production. And then we use various apps on our phone. We use a sun tracking app to show where the sun will rise and where the sun will set within the location that we're at. Maybe we're shooting not in a studio, but in a big house in London that the client has hired. And maybe there's a lot of glass and we need to know where the sun would go up so we can plan for that. And so we use that in conjunction with a few different weather apps as well, so we can really try and track the weather and check that we're, if we're getting rain, fine, was there an outside shot? If we're getting full sun and there's a glass roof, this could be a big problem for us. We need to order some 12 foot by 12 foot pieces of black material to block that hard sun coming in. So important for us to use a few different apps and tools to make sure that we're really prepped, ready to go, for the shoot day. So the shot list is really important, and as I said previously, it would normally be for an editorial shoot 3 or 4 shots, and so we've got really clear ideas about where those 4 shots will be. And if we're in a studio, it might be that they're on different backgrounds. For example, a magazine will nearly always want a cover shot, so something, and maybe that's dictated by the stylist, that there's an amazing red dress with loads of crazy sparkles on it or something, and the editor loves the idea that would be the cover shot. So sometimes it's dictated by what's happening in the wardrobe department, and other times it might be just dictated by the power of a shot. So they might like the idea of it being, say, on a really deep blue background that goes to black at the edges. So our shot list would be shot 1, let's get the cover shot in the bag. Sometimes the celebrity agent might say, guys, just an update. We know we said we could do 3 shots, but I'm afraid 4 shots, but I'm afraid we can only now do 3. If you left your cover shot to the last minute, you could be in problems. So we try and get the cover shot done first, and then the makeup's going to be fresh as well. I would have a visual reference of what roughly how I would be shooting that cover shot. So if it was a real close in with a crop, my visual reference would show that. And then often a magazine will want a DPS, which means double page spread. So when you open the magazine and turn it, then that often needs to be a landscape shaped picture with someone sitting or lying, and you need to allow for where the fold of the magazine would be. They certainly can't have their face in the middle of the fold, so we would make sure we have provision for the DPS shot, the double page spread, and sometimes we even get the dimensions from the magazine and we plug them in to our capture software, so we know through the camera that we're leaving enough space to be able to get the whole person in the shot. And then the third shot would be something, you know, that we pre-planned as well. So really important that it might be shot 1 on grey, shot 2 lying on the sofa, and then shot 3 outside. Great, you know, that's how we're planning to do it. If we end up running down the street for shot 5, then great. And if shot 5 running down the street ends up becoming the cover, brilliant, fantastic. We love the spontaneity, but what we can't do is be like, what should we do for shot 2? We don't have time for that. Often they will trim the time. When it says on the call sheet that we have 2 hours, sometimes that means we might have an hour. So we need to be ready to work really quickly, you know, really important. So when we get to shoot day, it's kind of planning, meticulously planning is going to solve all of your problems. Well, not all of them, but hopefully a lot of them. So planning is super important. What we do is once we've worked out exactly how many shots we're doing. So on a magazine cover shoot for kind of a big magazine, we would probably do 3 or 4 different setups, and so that might mean 3 or 4 different backgrounds, or 3 or 4 changes where a piece of furniture comes in or comes out, or maybe we go outside for one shot or not for another. So that's how we kind of work the shots. So we'll have a sheet with us with the 4 shots roughly written down, and then we get to the studio or the location really early and start to put it all together, and the assistant stands in and does a test for the light. So we have set 1 ready to go, and then if let's say we're bringing in a red background for the second shot, we do a test with the red background, and then the third shot's outside. We go outside and check the light for being outside, and then the same for the 4th one. So we're as well prepared as we can be, but we also have a few extra things in our bag. Like I always have a piece of black velvet, which we could quickly hang behind somebody and it will take them out of the situation. If you were going to do a portrait of me now with my nice green plants and my funny light, and you suddenly decided you wanted something a bit more powerful, you could quickly put a piece of black velvet behind me and that would remove me from the location, turn it to black and white, go in close, cut a bit of my head off, and you've got a really arresting portrait. You've kind of stolen an extra shot really quickly without having to change anything. Assistant in with the black velvet and then assistant back out. So we have black velvet. I also keep some other pieces of material with me. They travel in the van whenever we're onto a shoot. Last week I did a magazine cover shoot where at the very last minute I pulled out some gold material and used a light which put like a shard of light, a strip of light over the subject, and that ended up being the magazine cover. And we had no plan on doing that until 5 minutes before the person arrived on set. So I'm saying to you, be really planned and meticulous, which I am, but also leave some things, you know, in the nervous energy that is happening within the 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes before they come on set. Sometimes I change something, I just might have a quick idea. Hey, have we got the black velvet? Or hey, quick, did you set that blue background up? I've changed my mind. So I leave a little bit for the nervous energy, and then also being flexible, you know, with the talent as well. Sometimes they might say, hey, let me lie on these floorboards over here, and we get a big ladder and point the camera down, and we end up doing a shot of them lying down, and we have no plans. That wasn't in our 4 shots, but we need to be ready to be reactive. So, and that's kind of good fun as well, keeps us on our toes. But it's really important that I have those 4 shots really laid out, ready to go, because Sometimes the celebrity will want to know all the detail about where each shot is happening. And so it's very important that I appear fully in control as the second they arrive. So that's super important as well. So talking about the technical side of things, we're shooting on Canon cameras, and we're shooting tethered to laptops, and we have a big screen, and we're using Capture One software. So every image that we capture is coming up on screen for the client to see, and sometimes for the talent to see as well. And so in a studio scenario, we're using strobe lighting, flash lighting, mainly ProPhoto. We're using a lot of different attachments, particularly the ProPhoto Beauty Dish, and we use some soft lighters which come from America called Photech that I really love. They have a lovely soft light, silvery kind of light to it, so we're often using those soft lighters. And then when we're outside, we're shooting a lot more in daylight, so often it's a question of pulling out the cable out the camera and running outside, and then maybe just working with a simple reflector outside. So we're kind of used to adapting and moving and changing, and always trying to keep the lighting as interesting as possible. Maybe we're adding a bit of blue gel into an extra light just to give it a bit of strange feel, or I'm really loving turquoise gel at the moment, so I'm using a bit of that and just adding it in to add a bit of mystery and just to make things a little bit more interesting. There's also new technology coming out the whole time. We've been using some really good new LED lights which are don't get hot, and you can get them really near to the subject, and exciting to be trying out new kit like that. But generally speaking, we're using full-on strobe ProPhoto flash in the studio, and then often either battery packs or just daylight, and working with daylight outside, just sometimes with nothing, no light control at all, just them outside and moving around, and that can work really nicely as well. So things that we can't live without are memory cards, data cards, and batteries. My God, have any of you guys ever not had enough data cards or run out of memory cards? It's a horrible feeling. So we have loads of memory cards, even though most of the time we're shooting tethered in a studio environment. As I said previously, if the celebrity says, let's run down the street, great, where are the cards? Are they ready to go? We always make sure we format all of those cards on the morning of the shoot. So we've got lots of fresh cards ready to go, and batteries. What we're finding with the new mirrorless cameras particularly is that they eat batteries. My God, you're getting the battery symbol flashing so much more than we did on the previous 5D Mark IVs, where the batteries just seem to last forever. So batteries super important. So yeah, we're always kind of prepped with those two things there. I guess they're our most important must-haves. Well, lenses wise, I actually mostly shoot, I shoot almost everything actually with a 24-70 zoom. It's just the perfect lens for me. It kind of takes away any thought process. I love the focal length. I'm able to zoom in and out. So that's my kind of go-to lens. Although since we've gone mirrorless, I've actually been reaching for some older lenses. So I've been using a Sigma 50mm prime 1.4 art lens, which I used to use a lot when I first got it, and then it was actually hard to get it really sharp on the Canon 5D Mark IV. But now with the mirrorless cameras, I find that there's just no problem. So that, and sometimes the 85mm Canon 85mm f1.8, which is not even a pro lens, but it's a lovely lens, and I've been using that a bit again recently. So those two lenses have come out the bag, but it's rare really for me. It's nearly always 24-70, and I just feel really comfortable with that lens, and it allows me to sort of just get on and think about everything else, which in a lot of cases would be lighting or things changing or there being a problem or whatever it might be. I need the brain power for something else, but I can kind of get pretty much what I need with the 24-70 nearly all the time. These cameras these days are so complicated. There's so much amazing technology in them. We use barely any of it. We're shooting in manual mode. We're making sure we have enough depth of field to be able to get the face sharp and the clothes sharp. And then that's it really. It's then down to the interaction between me and the subject. So we're not using too many crazy things like filters or blurring the camera or anything like that. We're just kind of, it's obviously really important to be aware of your settings and be up to speed with shutter speed and movement, and working with depth of field as well, which we're doing all the time to to use it to certain effects. So it's really important that you're up to speed with that. Yeah, other than that, we just keep things simple on the camera and then kind of make all the action happen during the session, really, I guess. A lot of the time, I'm just using one light, not making things complicated. I love the work of British photographer Platon, who lives in America. Most of his portraits are shot just using one simple light with one simple umbrella straight above his lens. And I find that really liberating as a thought. The fact that he doesn't need to go into a stressful situation worrying about his lighting. He's just always going to keep this one light here, and then it's all about the interaction with the subject. I find that fascinating, and not because of that, but by coincidence, I also often just use one light. I love the way that the light falls off from a simple Photek soft lighter umbrella, which is just a simple silver umbrella with like a sock over the front of it. I think, years ago I used to use a lot more lights and backlights and grids and smoke and gels and everything else, which we do sometimes still do. But somebody was asking me last week as they were going through my website, wow, that wasn't just shot with one light. Yeah, it was actually. That wasn't shot with just one light. I said, yeah, that was too. So I think there's so much can be brought to the table with a brilliant portrait without having to get too complicated with lighting. So no matter where you are at in your journey, even if you're really advanced, you don't need to be using a crazy amount of lights. And if you're at the other end, just starting out and progressing, then don't go out and spend crazy amounts of money on lighting, because you can do some really wonderful things just using one simple light, and in fact just using daylight and controlling it properly. So I'm a big fan of one light. You'll often see me traveling around with just one little light and keeping things simple and using the interaction between me and the celebrity or me and the sitter to be able to get some great portraits. Well, I actually started off using film, which was a long time ago. I know it's kind of having a resurgence now, but we used to use exclusively film and process it by hand. And so I started off on film cameras, and then I was an early adopter to digital and moved across to digital as soon as it became available. Now we've moved across to mirrorless. I think it's really important to move with the times. Some of you guys will no doubt be using mirrorless. Other ones will be watching thousands of YouTube tutorials, wondering whether it's time for you to make the jump into mirrorless or not. And it's obviously one of the biggest changes we've seen in digital photography in years, the fact that we can now be working with mirrorless cameras that have fantastic ISO range and also amazingly fast silent shutters. All of this is big developments and big breakthroughs for us, with fantastic autofocus as well. So we're currently using Canon R5s, which have been out a little while, but that's been quite a game changer for us in terms of what we're able to do. I was doing a photo shoot last week for a big British supermarket, Marks and Spencer's, and I was photographing a guy who's a wine expert, and he quickly grabbed a bottle of champagne and said, hey, I'm going to do this thing where I pop the cork off using a knife and the champagne's going to spurt out. Now with mirrorless, because the Canon does 20 frames a second, I was able to say 3, 2, 1, go, and out came the champagne, and we had frames and frames and frames of that, 20 frames, the champagne emerging from the bottle, and the client was able to actually choose which frame they liked the best. So it was funny, we'd only received the R5 cameras the day before, so that was our first foray into using it on a proper job, and it was amazing to be able to have all that choice. And so I can really see how mirrorless is going to make a massive difference to almost everyone. And the eye track autofocus, which is kind of also a game changer as well, meaning that we're not having to check all of the time. Normally my Digitech is, I'm constantly saying camera check, which actually means, is it sharp? Is the focus definitely on the eyes, or has it dropped off a little bit? Now we're finding with mirrorless and with this eye autofocus that it's just locking on wherever the subject is, and it's like a relief, really. So sometimes it's frustrating to have to change, and people build barriers against change, but I think with tech you have to move with the change. I actually have a diary entry in my calendar that says once a month new tech review, which forces me to just stop and have an hour once every month just to go through and see what's happening. What are the latest developments? What's happening with the computers? What's happening with cameras? Am I staying ahead of the curve? Or am I at least keeping up with the technology, which I think is important. after the shoot, I go through, I would have shot probably 500 frames maybe. Just on average on, say, a magazine cover shoot. So I will go through those 500 frames and I have Capture One set so that the Q button turns each image red when I tap it. So I turn all of the shots that I love red, and I might turn 500 frames down to maybe 50, for example. So I will have removed all the ones with the eyes shut, the ones that didn't work. Maybe we tried something on a stool and it just didn't look good. Let's get rid of those. Which ones really do work? And often that is kind of down to 50. One thing I say to myself during that time actually is I say, would I be happy if this was the magazine cover? Because actually it's easy to leave a few too many in, and more often than not they will choose something for the magazine cover. You're like, oh God, did you not use the amazing one with all the sparkles and the smoke? And you just thought, well, why did I give them too much choice? So it's important to be, it's better that they're on the phone to me, hey, do you have any more? I'd rather that than giving them too many and then letting them make a bad choice. So that's important. So I do the color grade within Capture One. So I've made a lot of changes to the image as we go along. I'm often changing the saturation and the color balance and bending some of the colors, maybe turning blues more towards turquoises, or maybe turquoises more towards green. So I'm using Capture One to twist those colors in the same way you would use a LUT for cinematography. I guess this is called the color grade within photography. So I'm doing a lot of work there to give the input, to put my stamp on the image really. So I do that, and I do that on the shoot day when we're doing the test shots actually. So that gets kind of baked into the raw files, and then I do the edit with the red dots, and I turn 500 to 50, and then we process those as low-res JPEGs and upload them to a gallery for the client. So the client will then make their choices. Maybe they choose 3 or 5 or sometimes 8, not normally many more than that. And then it's time to retouch. So what happens is I do what's called markups, and I will take those 5 JPEGs and I will make notes. Oh, please remove these lines here. Please adjust these little veins on the hand. Please make the t-shirt darker, whatever it might be. I write my notes on those low-res JPEGs, and we send those off with the raw files to the retoucher. And also it's important to say that's not work that I want to be doing. I think my best time is spent with the talent, behind the camera, making the magic happen. Hopefully that's my strongest kind of ability. Photoshop is not, I'm happy to admit, it's not my, I'm not a supremo at Photoshop. I don't want to be. I'd rather leave that to someone who is really, really good at it. And also I don't want my laptop on my knees at midnight editing after I've had a massive shoot day. So I actually say to some of the photographers that I work with on the mentoring scheme, as soon as there's enough budget, just start outsourcing things that you're not brilliant at. Work out within your business, what is it that you're not brilliant at? Maybe it's the bookkeeping and the finances. Great, maybe let's get some help with that. Or maybe it's the retouching. Fine, get someone else to do it so that you can be free to think of more creative ideas or work on other elements of the business, update your website, look for new business, whatever it might be. So it's important. Most photographers don't really work too much like a business. They do everything themselves, and that's an easy way to get overtired and a bit burnt out. So really important to outsource the stuff you're not great at. That's a side note. Back to the workflow, which is that the retouch shots come back overnight from the retouchers, and sometimes I'll have a couple of adjustments to make. And when those adjustments are made, we present them to the client, and often the client will then sign them off. The retouchers will send high-res TIFF files over to us using WeTransfer, and we deliver those to the client, and then it becomes the magazine cover, and that's it, the job's closed. So that's kind of how the post-processing flow works. Do the edit on Capture One, output low-res JPEGs, send them to the client on a gallery, 50 shots, let them choose their favorite 3 or 4, send those 3 or 4 over to retouch, approve them once they're back, send over the high res and close the job. I hope that's not too complicated. I'm sure you guys, half of you guys, 3/4 of you guys are already doing that anyway, but for those of you who are not, that's a kind of a really standard way of working. That's how we generally do it. So in terms of skills you need, I think it's, you've got to, being realistic, you've got to be quite outgoing to do this job. You need to, and if you're not outgoing, you need to work on that a bit. As I said, whether if they're in a down mood or if they're in an up mood, you need to be kind of rolling with them. If they're feeling like they need some kind of quietness, then you need to be a bit quieter. If they're kind of like, woo, it's Friday, woohoo, you need to kind of signal to the assistant to turn the music up and join them at their energy level. So you're kind of matching the energy level a little bit, really. Of the person who's sitting for you, and that's going to make kind of some good synergy between the two of you. So if anyone watching is thinking about breaking into portrait photography or already working in it and wanting to kind of improve, people skills, reading people's moods and emotions is really, really important. I think if you're a really quiet person and very introverted, it will be hard for you to be able to communicate properly and bring out the best in people and to put them at ease. So, if you're not the most communicative, that's something you would need to work on. You need to be kind of working on the skills to be able to communicate really well with no matter what sort of person you're kind of having through the door. So I think that's really, really important to say. Working with people is really so important when you're a portrait photographer. You can have somebody in front of you who, like me, doesn't stop talking, or you can have someone in front of you who doesn't say two words, and you've got to be really good at reading the person, working out what's maybe making them uncomfortable or not at ease, or how you can quietly tell them to maybe not talk so much, and so that they can listen to what you're saying. So it takes a lot of skills, really. People skills is such a large part of what I do as a celebrity photographer. Super important. As I said, we have a whole range of people. Sometimes someone really lovely comes into the studio for a 20-minute quick cover shoot, and they're really frustrated, nothing to do with the shoot, but because of something else that's going on. Maybe there's a legal problem, maybe there's a problem with their agent, maybe they've just been told they have to travel and they don't want to, or any one of these things. I've had sittings before where I photographed someone and they've been really difficult to work with, and then 1 year later I look at my call sheet for the next day and I see it's the same person. I'm like, hang on, there's an alarm bell. I seem to remember there was a problem on that shoot, and then I get to that shoot and it's the same person. They didn't remember the bad time and they're like, hello, nice to meet you, my name's Susan, or whatever it might be, and I'm like, oh, maybe we're okay this time, and then have a really great shoot. So you never know what's going on in someone's mind and behind the scenes. So we, as portrait photographers, I guess, have to be really able to adapt and to just put people at ease as well. A lot of what I do is putting people at ease, I think, just saying, hey, listen, this is what we do, this is what I do, I've got it all sorted out, I've arranged everything, I know exactly what I need from you to make this work, and you're going to be out of here really quickly. So that often puts people really at ease once they know I'm kind of in control. If they see me not being so much in control, or any of the team wondering about where to do the next shot or not sure how to light something, then that can make frustration start to creep in. So being super organized, having everything kind of mapped out, and then just being ready to take them no matter what state they're in. They're kind of really important skills for us being kind of celebrity portrait photographers, I guess. So I believe you need to be kind of proficient. You need to be really good at sort of 5 key areas if you want to really make it as a photographer, not just as a celebrity portrait photographer, but kind of as any photographer, really. You need a framework to run your days and weeks by. You need to be outsourcing some stuff and not doing everything yourself. You need to be creative and work on your creativity. Don't just expect it to happen. You need to have a network and start building a network. And also you need to be great at selling yourself, which photographers are notoriously bad at as well. So F for framework, super important to have a framework to run your days and weeks by. Photographers are generally woefully disorganized. I used to be, but we need to claw back our time. I don't know if you've ever kind of woken up on a random Tuesday and it's drizzling and you're looking out the window and you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to do the website today. Definitely going to update the website 100%. Actually, do you know what? I don't feel that great. I'm just going to call a friend and go for a coffee instead. No. It's invoicing day today. 100% I'm going to invoice today. Well, that's it. Cancel the friend's coffee. Let's do that. Often, very often as photographers, we don't have any kind of framework to run our time and our days and weeks by. So the first thing I think is really important to do is kind of claw back your time and start blocking out time and working in time blocks on things that you know that you need to do. You need to be working on the business. You need to be working on the website. Great, we'll put that in a time block. Is Thursday's website day, Thursday afternoons could be website day, Monday mornings might be finance day. Sure, if you get a photo shoot in, great, everything gets parked to one side. But if you're on a non-shoot day, then straight back to the rules and following the rules. And that I've found for me was really, really helpful. So F for framework, it's really important you start mapping out your time, working out what you want to be doing that day, your big 3 things, if you like, and then getting those kind of in the book, on a journal, in a planner, however it might be, and then just getting down and dirty and doing it. So yeah, that's really important. O for outsource. I think another crucial thing that most photographers do is they're kind of kicking the fridge door shut while they're stirring the stir fry. They're doing everything. Most photographers are on their laptop at midnight editing forward, tick, forward, tick. You're doing everything within the business. And I think as soon as there's any budget, it's really important to try and outsource some of that. So I get all my retouching done in the Philippines, and due to the time difference between the UK, that's done while I sleep. So when I wake up, I've got low-res JPEGs ready to approve in my inbox. We're able to make a bit of profit on retouching. We can sometimes charge the client more for the retouch than it costs us to have it done. So that also can help with lower fee jobs, can help kind of balance things out. So that's another good reason to do that. Also, bookkeeping, accounting, that's the worst part of it for me. I'm not great with figures. I've become better, but I don't love logging all of the invoices and everything else. So as soon as there was enough budget, I got someone else to do that. So outsourcing stuff, working out which stuff within the business you like doing the least and getting rid of it is super important. C for creativity. I believe creativity takes a lot of work. I've got a friend who's a material designer who works in Paris, and she says to me, oh my God, I have so many ideas. It's like a tap that I can't turn off. And for me, it couldn't be more different. I feel everything's got to be just right in alignment for me to have, just the beginnings of a great idea. So I have a reference folder, which I keep on my desktop, and I've had it for 10 years, 12 years maybe. And anytime I see something that I find inspirational, I stick it in there, I screen grab it. Pictures of images, pictures of colours. I've got, there's a picture of a dust sheet floating on a grey background in there. There's also a picture of something that's smashed and some dust coming up. I don't photograph either of those things, but I'll take elements from that and I will weave those into the next creative idea that I might have. I have a picture of some neon lights reflected in some water in the Soho area of London. That was just screen grabbed from doing some picture research one day. But when somebody calls me for a commission and says, hey, listen, we're wondering about what to do for this idea, I open up that reference folder and I drag some of the screen grabs onto a big, fresh new sheet, and I start to ruminate on how creative I could make that shoot. So I believe it's super important to be creative. As I said, creativity is this muscle with which you can flex. And, if you're lifting weights regularly, your muscles grow and improve and get stronger. The same with creativity. If you don't work on it, when the next new commission comes in, maybe you're not that full of great ideas. So for me, it's super important to work on it. And I believe that if all you guys are working on your creativity as well, then that's going to make you better photographers and hopefully more employable as a result. The fourth one is us, which is network. Now, I think it's really important that you start to build a network. Photographers are notorious at just working as lone wolves. Often they don't necessarily know other people that they can call, to say, hey, listen, I've got someone who doesn't want to pay me. Do I go legal on them? Have you ever gone legal? What happens? How do we do that? Or, hey, listen, I've got a job in Israel. Do you know if I can fly there with my Profoto battery flash heads on the flight? Have you ever done that? Or do you know if I need a visa? Who have you got in your network that could help you? Is there anyone in your network? If not, maybe you can start to build a network. In the UK, we have Facebook groups like Creative Networking and Photographers United. These are places that questions like that can be asked, and you can start to get answers to some of your problems. But building a network in that way is super helpful, and I think helps your business as a whole. It's also really important to network in more of the traditional sense. So, we have lots of creative meetups in London. So going to creative meetups and introducing yourself to other creatives, another great thing to do to help sort of build your network and just get yourself out there a bit. The last one is S for sell yourself. So I think photographers, again, are quite bad at actually shouting about the great work they do. What they normally do is a new job comes in and they're like, woohoo, life is great. They do the great job. It gets published. Everyone says they love it. And then nothing happens. And then they wait. And then the phone doesn't ring. And then the doubt sets in. And then you think, oh, maybe I'm not that good. And oh, maybe I didn't do that much of a good job. God, no one loves me. Oh, hang on, the phone's ringing again. Woohoo, brilliant, great. And we live in this kind of zigzag world of like, yay, no, yay, and it's tough, and it doesn't have to be like that. If you put the marketing machine in place that shouts about the great work you're doing, you're knocking these peaks and troughs off, so you're starting to make the line a little bit more manageable. And so shouting about the great work you do, that could be via a newsletter, that could be via keeping your presence on LinkedIn really up to date. LinkedIn is really underrated, by the way, I think. It's a very, very powerful platform. So keeping that super up to date and connecting with people that you would love to commission you, commenting on the posts that they're making, as well as your own social strategy. So posting regularly. Lots of photographers that I'm even working with on the mentor scheme, don't have a strong social presence as yet, or Instagram's not that high on their priorities. Well, it kind of needs to be right now. It needs to be that you're shouting about some of the great work that you're doing there, and maybe showing some other interesting things, some behind the scenes, or talking about any of the struggles you had on the shoot. That's all really important stuff to just grow awareness. So S for sell yourself, super important. Maybe you're spending a little bit of money on some paid advertising to get your great work right under the noses of the people who would potentially commission you. Many photographers don't do any of those things I've mentioned, and then they're just sitting there waiting for the phone to ring, and that's when the doubt sets in. So we need to be really proactive on S for sell yourself, getting out there and selling yourselves to get more work in and to have a better working life really as a photographer. Do I break the rules or follow them? Well, that's a very good question. I take inspiration from lots of other photographers. My scrapbook, my download folder of inspirational imagery is epic, and it's not just straight photographs shot by other people as well. It could be just colours. It might be a sweet wrapper that's got a certain colour to it, that's on a road that's got some late afternoon sunshine on it. So maybe it's the mixture of the purple sweet wrapper and the late afternoon sun, and I'll take those two colours and I will build them into the next shoot I do. Maybe the model is going to have the purple as her clothes, and maybe I'll get the background painted in the same golden tone as the sun. So that's where my inspiration might come from there. But with regard to breaking any rules, I don't think there's too many rules to be broken. I think I take inspiration from a real wide range of sources. Sometimes I will see the color grade on someone else's work and think, wow, that's beautiful. And I will maybe notice that I will start to make a color grade a bit similar on another shoot that I do. But so I think it's just pieces of inspiration that come in, and I don't really think there are any rules. On a shoot a couple of weeks ago, I normally darken the edges of my pictures. In the end, I just got the slider and I made the edges light. I don't know why, but I quite liked it. So I supplied that client with all of the portraits with light edges rather than dark. I mean, that's kind of my rule to make, really. I just decided to put the slider the other way. So I think, certainly with regard to traditional photography, people talk about things like composition and rule of thirds. I just think you can do what you want, do whatever you want that makes the shot as creative and as satisfying for you as possible. Inspiration-wise, I feel I'm inspired constantly from very traditional photographers such as Avedon and Irving Penn and people like that, through to people like Platon, who's a great UK photographer in the US who shoots Hasselblad and shoots on film. I'm sure most of you will know his amazing portraits. He removes the clutter from his mind by shooting mainly just with one light over the camera and then making the whole shoot just about the interaction. But I'm inspired kind of daily, you know, the work of Lee Jeffries, who's a British photographer who just photographs mainly homeless people in daylight, and does quite a lot of post-production, much more post-production than I do, but I'm really inspired by the power of his shots. Norman Jean Roy is an amazing photographer who is now a bread maker as well as a photographer. I think he has a successful bakery in Brooklyn, I believe. But I was really inspired sort of as I was honing my craft by his work, and of course Annie Leibovitz as well, in terms of their colour and posing mainly. I really enjoy looking at a whole myriad of inspiration from the traditional right through to the contemporary. Well, one of my favourite more recent shots was of our former Prime Minister Tony Blair. I photographed him in the summer, in between the lockdowns, the COVID lockdowns, and I was meant to have 1 hour with him, and the journalist's interview overran, which can often happen, and so my time got whittled down, and in the end I only had 9 minutes, and also I wasn't allowed an assistant that day because of the COVID restrictions. So the plan was to photograph Tony for the Sunday Times magazine cover, ideally outside, but when I arrived, the agent said that Tony probably wasn't so keen to go outside, so we had to turn one of the spare bedrooms in the little area that we were working into a mini studio, and to do that single-handedly took a lot of time and a lot of work. The agent helped me move some of the stuff out of the way, and then I set up my backdrop, and in the end I had all of the lights set up, and I was waiting, you know, thinking, please hurry up, because I'm gonna really not have any time to do this. And in the end, yeah, I got 9 minutes, and I did a couple of quick portraits, and then we went outside, even though it was a bit windy, just about managed to get a few shots there, and then he opened the gate through into the main part of the house and was gone. So it was a lot to do single-handedly within 9 minutes, but the magazine were really happy, and it made quite a striking portrait on the cover. So yeah, that's one of my more favourite recent shots. So to be really successful, tips and tricks from me to kind of really make it. Number one, be super organised. I'm not organised by nature. I was never like that kid to put all my CDs. Does anyone know what CDs are watching this? Am I showing my age? I was never that guy to put like my CDs in rainbow coloured order and organise everything so everything was neat, all my food cupboards with everything neat in line. No, everything was always all over the place, but I've learned to be more organised. And you know, if you're getting 20 minutes with an A-list celebrity, my God, you've got to be organised. I might need to get 4 different setups within that 20 minutes. So got to be organised. We can't run out of batteries. You know, we can't have things not charged up. We can't be like, hey, where's the 24-70 lens? No, we've got to know where it is, and everything's got to be kind of labelled and in order. So I've become more organised. So being organised, super important. That is it's kind of not even a tip or trick. I guess it kind of is, but it's a must. So be organised, get everything labelled, go and buy some more batteries. So that's really, really important. Just being yourself as well, being honest with people, and not trying to be too much of a rock star, or you know, not kind of playing a character that you're not really. Just being yourself. People read that really quickly, and that can you know, go a long way to you know, to helping you get a good result. Sometimes you might be saying, hey, listen, look, you know, thank you so much for the last 20 minutes. I just don't feel we've quite got what we need. Now there's a blue wall outside and it's got a shaft of sunlight hitting it. Is there any way, I know you're on time here, but is there any way we could just go outside against the blue wall for just 2 minutes? Because I think it's going to make a great shot. If you speak from the heart like that, the chances are there's any possibility they're going to say yes. Believe me, I've done that hundreds of times, and they're like, oh God. They look at the agent, looks on and has a bit of a frown, and they say, okay, if you're quick, then guess what you get? You get a shot forever against them, against the blue wall with a lovely shard of light. So trying your luck a little bit, I guess, as well. So being organised, kind of trying your luck, they're probably the two most kind of Well, they're the biggest tips off the top of my head, I think, really. And be nice, just be nice to everyone. Remember everyone's names. I'm not very good at remembering names, but I try really hard. Work out who's the agent, who's the makeup artist, who's the stylist. Make sure you address them by name. And then that will all filter back and people will be like, oh, that was a nice shoot. He addressed me personally, or he remembered my name. So another really important point, I aim to have a really nice team around me who are very polite to everybody, and they remember people's names and they help carry things, and they say, thank you so much at the end of a photo shoot, and I'll make sure I go and shake everyone's hand at the end. So those little kind of things, they go a long way. People remember that. So that's another little tip to make sure to give you the best chance of having success, I guess. I hope you've enjoyed listening. I hope you found some value in everything that we've discussed. You can find out more about me at danielkennedy.com. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm at dankennedyphoto, and I'll follow you back. I also do some mentoring and workshops here in the UK, and you can find out more about that at dankennedy.academy.com.